Where does the word proletarian come from? Well, we have to go back to ancient Rome, don't we? Does anyone know what the word proletarian literally means? It actually literally means one who has children. That is the definition of a proletarian. That's really what it means. The class, the ones who procreate. And the reason that was the term used for certain people in ancient Rome is in Rome you had slave owners and you had slaves, and the proletarians were neither slaves nor masters. And all they had were their children. They didn't own any land, they didn't own any property, but no one else owned them. They were the class that had nothing but their children. The only way they could have property is if they had children. Your children were considered to be part of your property. And the proletariat had never existed before until ancient Rome. You know, in other societies, you have slaves, you have masters, you have serfs, you have landowners. There'd never been a proletariat before. And that's why when great kings from all over the world, and Cleopatra and others visited Rome, they were shocked because they knew that Rome was the capital of the world. This was the capital of the modern world, the center of this global empire. But they would see homeless people on the streets. They would say, how can this be? How can this be? Well, that's because when you have proletarians, you have homeless people. Because if the proletarian can't sell their labor, they can't survive. And so this great city had a big problem of all these crowds of desperately poor and homeless people. And Julius Caesar, part of the way he built up his power is he became a champion of the proletariat. And he started passing laws to help the proletariat and things like that. And that's part of why he was killed. This is what you have to remember about Rome. See, back in Rome, we understand, they had the polytheism, where they believed in different gods. And the way Rome was set up was that every section of society, they had their own rites and religious practices. The navy of Rome, they worshiped the god Neptune, and they had a special temple for the god of the ocean, Neptune, and they had special rituals that only sailors would engage in because they were worshiping the god Neptune. There were parts of the military that worshiped Mars, who was the god of war, and they had certain ceremonies they would engage in, and these were called the mystery cults, right? It was based on your profession. You prayed to a certain god, you engaged in certain rituals. There were certain teachings that you learned as you became, if you were a sailor for a few more years, you'd learn more about the legend of Neptune and his life. And these were called the mystery religions, the mystery cults. This is how Rome was set up, as they had this. And as the proletariat in Rome started organizing and started withholding their labor and saying to the employers, the pipe fitters and the bricklayers, they started to develop their own mystery religion. A lot of them were from Greece. A lot of them were Jews from Palestine. And when they would get together and organize as the proletariat, they started to worship their own God. And they started to have their own mystery religion, if you will call it that. And they started to worship Jesus the carpenter. Woo! This is a historical fact. Go read The Foundations of Christianity by Karl Kautsky. Christianity as a religion began as the political expression of the Roman proletariat. That's what it began as. The proletarians were asserting their rights and fighting back against their employers. They developed their own mystery religion. They worshipped a craftsman just like they were. A lot of them were Jews from Palestine. And they began to organize and to fight for the rights of the proletariat. And, as we know, back in ancient Rome, the Romans were not particularly thrilled about this, and that Christians were being persecuted, etc. But after the Christians continued, and after so many of them had been fed to lions, and so many of them had been burned at the stake, and it still existed, there started to be some within the Roman ruling elite who started to say, well, maybe there's parts of this Christianity thing that we can co-opt for ourselves. We have this problem with homeless children. These Christians, they build orphanages. So maybe we could find some good Christians to build orphanages and deal with this homeless children problem, And all over the empire, we have all these people fighting against us. And when they rally against us, they always have their own God they rally around. But these Christians, they believe in only one God. So we could outlaw all the other gods and just have one God. And so you saw Christianity being co-opted and adjusted and taken from being a revolutionary movement and turned into a mechanism for stabilizing the empire. And the Christians, when the early Christians were talking, they were talking about how one day Jesus was going to return and he was going to tear down the empire. And they were going to create a society where the last shall be first and the first shall be last. And those who were loyal reigned for 1,000 years. However, as Christianity was getting watered down and adjusted, it started to become, you should obey the Roman Empire because, look ahead to the next life. Think about the next life, be obedient and submissive. And Christianity was being watered down and adjusted to serve the needs of the Roman Empire. And if you think about it, that's a lot like something that's happened to our movement. there are elements that have taken socialism, the movement of the proletariat, and turned it into a mechanism for trying to stable their empire. You know, I mean, you think about Jesus Christ. How would Jesus Christ feel if he returned now to see a church with a Ukrainian flag supporting the neo-Nazis in it? But then, dare I go there?
Go there.
How would Lenin or Stalin or William Z. Foster or Gus Hall feel if they saw the disgraceful organization that calls itself the Communist Party USA? So much evil is being done in the name of our movement right now. What began as a movement to liberate the proletariat and destroy empires has been hijacked as a mechanism for trying to stabilize their empire. And people say, well, Caleb, don't be sectarian, don't be divisive, don't talk about this. We have a responsibility to talk about this. We have absolutely a responsibility to talk about this. If you want to read some angry writing, go and read the writings of Vladimir Lenin when World War I was breaking out. Because World War I would not have happened if it weren't for socialists who sold out and let it happen. And if the socialist movement had stuck to its principles and said, we'll never send workers to kill other workers, World War I wouldn't have happened. But they sold out, they abandoned their principles, and 20 million workers were sent to their deaths. And if you read Lenin's writings, this is what he says. Neither we nor anyone else can calculate precisely what portion of the proletariat is following or will follow the social chauvists and opportunists. This will be revealed only by the struggle, and it will be definitely decided only by the socialist revolution. And it is therefore our duty, if we wish to remain socialists, to go down lower and deeper to the real masses.
Amen.
This is the whole meaning and the whole purport of the struggle against opportunism. By exposing the fact that the opportunists and social chauvinists are in reality betraying and selling out the interests of the masses, that they are defending the temporary privileges of a minority of workers, that they are vehicles for bourgeois ideas and influences, that they are really allies and agents of the bourgeoisie, we teach the masses to appreciate their true political interests and to fight for socialism and for the revolution, all through the long and painful vicissitudes of imperialist war and imperialist armistices. The only Marxist line in the world labor movement is to explain to the masses the inevitability and the necessity of breaking with opportunism, and to educate them for revolution by waging a relentless struggle against opportunism, to utilize the experience of war to expose the utter vileness of national labor politics. So when we have a situation like this, where the imperialists are stirring us up for war against Russia, and we see organization after organization and entity after entity that speaks in the name of socialism supporting that, it is our duty to go lower and deeper to the real masses to expose the opportunists. That is what our job is. And it's not our job to try and please them. And it's not our job to try and go to them and accommodate them and be part of them. It is our job to go lower and deeper to the real masses to expose the opportunists. That is our job. We should be knocking on doors in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Kentucky and Minneapolis and wherever to tell people about why to oppose the synthetic left. That's what our job should be. Out of the movement! Out of the movement! Out of the movement! Out of the movement! Out of the movement!
To the masses! Woo! Woo! Yeah! Okay.
I was on a show with libertarians. You know, Pasta was here earlier. And, they were saying, well, Caleb, we see how corrupt the government of the United States is. Why would you want to expand the government? And I said, I want you to imagine we had a different kind of government. Instead of having a government that's weak and pathetic and rolled over and does whatever Jeff Bezos and Wall Street said, let's imagine for a moment that we had a government that kicked Jeff Bezos' ass.
Damn right!
Let's imagine a government that fought against the rich and powerful and was strong enough to rejuvenate this country and rebuild it, and was strong enough to say that Russia and China and Iran and Venezuela would be great friends in doing so. They want growth, we want growth, and let's kick the degrowthers out of Washington, D.C. Imagine we had a government like that. And let me also add that Che Guevara, he very famously said that true revolutionaries are motivated by great feelings of love. And that's a cliche, it gets thrown out by socialists a lot, but it's really important for us to understand it now, because you can't organize people if you hate them. You can't organize people if you look down on them. You can't organize people if you think you're better than them. And that a lot of what passes for socialism these days is academic elitism, and it's contempt for the masses of people. They don't love the masses of people. So of course they can't organize them. We have to learn to love people, and it's hard. And there's a lot of backward ideas out there. But an old communist once said to me, it's the only working class we got, Caleb, and this is our responsibility. This is our responsibility. We have to do the hard work, and the hard work is not staying safe in our movement safe spaces and accommodating them and compromising our principles in order to appease them. The hard work is going out of the movement to the masses.
That's right.
You know, AOC, good night. I wanted to like AOC. You know, I'm photographed with AOC. Before she was AOC even, when she had just announced her campaign, I went to a reception, and I wanted to like AOC. That's the wrong attitude to have, that we should want to just call out anybody, right? If there's this young woman, and she's running for Congress, and she believes in socialism, we should have wanted to like her, but you can't like her now because she's pro-imperialist. I mean, and she's made that abundantly clear. But we should try, right? We should have the attitude that anyone who comes along in the power structure could be an ally, and we should try to maintain alliances if possible. It's not possible with AOC. You know, I looked at that tweet she made at the Super Bowl. Did people see this? Yeah, so at the Super Bowl, there was a Christian group, and they made an ad. And the ad, it was, you know, it showed Jesus bringing people together, saying, love your enemies. It showed, like, children hugging each other and stuff like that. And it was, you know, it was promoting Jesus. She tweets out, I doubt Jesus would spend $1 million to make fascism look better. Wow. Well, that's reprehensible. No, I mean, you know, it'd be one thing if this was an ad opposing abortion or if this was an ad opposing gay marriage. This was just an ad promoting Christian love and brotherhood, and she calls it fascist. That's bigotry, you know? And if there was an ad for Islam and she responded that way, people would call it out. If there was an ad for Judaism and she responded that way, people would call it out. We ought to call that out. And we ought to say to our Christian brothers in the working class, AOC is pushing bigotry against you, and that's not okay. And you know, Ilhan Omar, you know, another member of our great squad, she posted, it was something about January 6th. And she said, well, people aren't rallying behind Trump because of their economic suffering, she said. She said, it's not because of economic hardships or injustice. She said, they're just losing their privilege. And I look at that ad and I think, you know, I'm a socialist because I believe everyone has the right to a job, has the right to housing, has the right to education. And when people are losing their jobs and homes, and when communities are falling apart, it's not someone losing their privilege. It's a violation of their rights. And this is an opportunity for solidarity. Now, you all are great. I've been talking to you all, and we've had some great speeches here. And, you know, I really want to spend my time in this room, but for just a moment, I want to speak to the isolated, lonely, negative, millennial or Zoomer communist who's watching this at home on YouTube. And I'm going to speak directly to them in the camera. You're watching this, and you're feeling a lot of negativity. And you're watching this, and you're frustrated, and you're angry. And your politics are motivated by anger and frustration. They're frustrated by isolation. And that's understandable in a society like the one we live in, where death is all around you. Death is everywhere in this society. People are dying of opioids. People are killing themselves. We've got the danger of a new world war hanging over our horizon. Death is everywhere. There's a huge effort from social media, from mainstream media, to try and get you to die. For just a moment, I want you to look inside of yourself and listen to the part of yourself that wants to live.
That's right!
If you're going to choose life, you're going to need brothers. You're going to need sisters. You're going to need comrades. You're going to need to learn to rely on people. You're going to need to learn to get along with people. You're going to need to learn to deal with people sometimes letting you down or doing things that disappoint you. But if you're going to live, you can't do it alone. You need a community. You need people to struggle with. And my whole adult life has been spent in communist organizations, and I can't imagine what life would be without this. But a lot of people say to me, Caleb, you got this great job as a reporter, just, you know, make a YouTube video every so often. No. When it comes to politics for me, it is all about building an organization. It is all about building a community.
That's why we're here.
And we're here, and there's many people right now all over this country who are longing for something to believe in. And the ruling class is telling them that there is no truth. There is no God, there is no truth, there's nothing worth fighting for, there's nothing worth dying for. Just roll over and be degrown so we can save our system. And we are here to say we will resist. And we are going to build a solid block, and we are going to come together, and it's going to be difficult, and we're going to get on each other's nerves, and we're going to make mistakes, but it must be done. There is no alternative. We must build our organization. And I just want to point this out. It's almost like they've given us a gift. Because for years, the reason that Americans wouldn't become communists was they were told, well, communism's against the American dream. It's against the American way of life. Well, now the ruling class is saying the American dream is over. There is no American way of life. Just whip yourself and be full of shame about the evils of this country. Well, actually, that's an opportunity for us to step up and say, actually, there are things in the history of this country to be proud of. We can be proud of the labor movement. We can be proud of John Brown. We can be proud of Fred Hampton. And we can be proud to be part of the legacy of resistance to the evil empire that has existed here. It's an opportunity for us. They're giving us a gift. In addition to that, for years, Americans have been told, oh, you can't be a communist because communists are atheists, and they don't believe in Christianity. But now the ruling class is saying there is no God, and Christianity is fascism, and anyone who believes in any principle is an agent of fascism trying to brainwash you or control you. So that gives us an opportunity to say, well, we're going to stand up for the belief that there is something worth living for, that it is worth living for the sake of others, it is worth sacrificing for a higher purpose. This is a huge opportunity for us, a huge opportunity for us. And for a long time, they've told us, oh, you can't be a communist. You can't be a communist because in America, anyone can work hard. Anyone can go out and achieve their dreams and be rich. And communism's against that. But now, look at the United States. The whole place is falling apart, and their message to us is, oh, we should all be poorer. We should just accept it. We're a cancer on the planet, and we should all be poorer. Well, we can say, if you want the American dream, if you want a better future for your children, if you want the roads paved in your neighborhood, you want jobs and schools and opportunities, you got to be a communist. They're giving us a huge gift. Everything Americans believe in, they are handing to us on a silver platter. We just have to take it. And they are really scared of anybody taking it. They're terrified of this. Since 2008, they've been warning about the dangers of populism. Populism is the most dangerous thing ever because they know it's only a matter of time before we band together and start fighting to defend our schools and jobs and communities and coming together and realizing we have a common interest, rejecting their low-wage police state and building a new America, and doing so in solidarity with Russia and China and Venezuela and all the countries they've told us to hate. They hate us and they hate those countries, so I think we can bond together against our common enemy, don't you? And so I'll just end by emphasizing what I said before, which is that we have to learn to love. And if we can't learn to love, we can't learn to love our community, love the people in our country, love the people in our communities, if we can't learn to be patient with them, we have no hope. The time for being bitter and isolated and pessimistic is over. We have a very serious task ahead of us. The stakes are getting higher. It's time to get out of the movement and get to the masses. It's time to build the Center for Political Innovation. It's time to take our job seriously. Dare to struggle, dare to win. Thank you.